the most important thing is stop being afraid of repelling people. Repelling people is actually the job of a brand.
Say that again for those in the back.
Stop, for all of you in the back, stop being afraid of repelling people. Repelling people is part of the job of a brand.
Welcome to Brand on the Rocks, the podcast that distills bold ideas into clear messages you can actually use. Each week, we serve up conversations, audits, and straight pours of insight to help you cut through the noise and grow your business. Hosted by brand strategist Ryan Holck, this is where clarity comes neat and your brand gets remembered.
Welcome to Brand on the Rocks. Today, I have a great friend with me joining. This is Diana Ault. She is a career and executive coach who helps leaders to find professional success on their own terms. We're going to talk a little about that today, but she really helps people to align their life and their work in ways that feel good, not just like a long, slow march into oblivion and the crazy life that you didn't dream of. Diana, welcome to the show.
Welcome. I'm glad to have, I said welcome to the show because I just recorded a podcast myself. I don't know whose
Wow.
podcast I'm on today, Ryan. How funny is that? Have you
I
ever done
love
that?
it. Yes.
Just leave it in.
Just leave it
My
in.
mantra is high content quality, low production value. So having the
Totally.
weird awkwardness at the beginning goes with that.
No, I actually appreciate it. Having done a few where you're like, I wish it was a little awkward. It would just help, get things started. But so Diana, we have known each other. I was thinking about this earlier today since sometime in COVID. Is that right?
2020 house thing.
2020 house thing, which for those of you who don't know was, well, tell people what that event let's call that an
So
adventure because that
yeah,
was more than anything.
Ryan and I are both part of a community that is, we commonly call it the Thing community. Terry Weaver is our friend and coach that hosts an event series called The Thing. And every year he calls whatever the thing is by its city. So the Thing LA, the Thing Nashville, the Thing Orlando. And in 2020, the Thing Orlando was supposed to be in May. And of course, got canceled due to COVID. But a bunch of people in the summer were like, Terry, you got to do something. Like, we're going crazy. We need to hang out with each other. So he rented this big old, actually two, he rented a big giant Airbnb with like 12 bedrooms and then another one. And we call that one the house thing, which was in Orlando. It was the kind of Airbnb that has a basketball court and a movie theater.
Yep. And a giant pool and
All
yeah,
the things. Yeah.
all the things.
So we hung out and did entrepreneur nerd stuff together. And that was the first time, which we didn't get to hang out that much at that event.
No,
A
we
little
did
bit.
not.
A
But
little
that
bit.
was the first time I think we
I figured out
connected.
you were brilliant, but we didn't become besties until later.
So you're not the first person to say that phrase, but the funny part is I still don't believe it, but it's all right.
What? Which thing?
That
What don't you
brilliance.
believe? That you're brilliant?
Yeah, that's
Stop
just one
it.
of those like self-deprecating things. I don't know. So the interesting thing about that event for me was, first of all, I didn't realize how desperately I needed a community that just thought differently
Yes.
about business, about how life and business intersect, how things connected. And I think in some ways, first of all, I found community there, but I had conversations there that I was really yearning to have, and I didn't realize it at the time. And
Like what?
some of it
More.
was a networking piece and component to it. And some of it was, it didn't feel like your typical event. It felt like, by event, I mean, yes, we had speakers, yes, we had sessions, but for me, the in-between time that happened at meals, as we were just hanging out, in the kitchen or the living room area and having like, how is this working in your business? How did you fix it? Those kind of
Mhm.
conversations. I didn't realize how desperately I needed those.
People, so one of the things that I like to joke about on LinkedIn, which is, I'd call that my primary social media platform, is that everybody's either thrilled or humbled. Whatever they're posting about the cool thing that they do, they're thrilled or humbled. I'm humbled to announce that I was nominated for such and such award. I'm thrilled to announce that I've started a job as director of software engineering at Acme Corporation, right? So when you're in most conferences, everybody's walking around acting like they're humbled, or thrilled.
Mm.
But when you're in the middle of a global pandemic and you're in a 12-bedroom Airbnb with a bunch of people that have been locked up with their dogs and their kids and their pets, or with nobody, which was my case, for most of a very long time, no one is humbled and thrilled anymore. They're just real. And so it felt like that first week of college where, when you move into the dorm in college and you feel by the end of the week like you've known all of the people that are on your dorm floor for 100 years. It's because you concentrated what would have been a semester or a year of getting to know somebody that sat next to you in biology class into, oh my gosh, this person lives next door to me. Like I showered next to this person this morning in a separate shower, not this,
Yeah.
not this.
Thanks for
We didn't
clarifying.
have that kind of show. It's not that kind of show. So, but yeah, it felt like that.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, I feel like that event and some things that have happened since have changed how I think about networking. It's definitely impacted the way that I think about the articulation and communication of what I do,
Huh?
because it's one thing to type it. It's another thing to be forced to say your dang story over and over and over again
Yes.
in front of a group of people in a very concentrated period of time,
Yes.
because you
Especially when
really,
half of them are marketing consultants. Like,
yes,
because if you're, especially if you're on the early end of that, it's nerve wracking. Like, oh my gosh, well, Roberto Candelario was at that event and spoke, and he is very into the dialed in message. And it'd be very easy to look at someone that's 15 years ahead of you and go, oh my God, is he going to judge the way that I say? Well, yeah, he's going to judge you, but to help you.
to help.
That's
Yes.
that's what that kind of networking and that conference experience was like. So
Yes, very much so. And I learned so much and walked away from there with so much. And the goal of my talk of this today was not so we just talk about the thing, but I think,
but you should go to the thing. There's one
but you
in
should go to the
Nashville.
thing. Yes.
There's one in Nashville on June 6th and one in Orlando 7th through 9th,
7th or 9th,
2026, and one in Orlando on dates I forgot, mid-November.
mid-November.
Go to the website.
Thanks for that plug. That was actually, I had thought about doing that already.
Whose
So that's
affiliate
awesome.
link is going in the show notes.
Yeah. So the interesting thing though is that community has forced me to think differently about my business. And we got connected, and the reality is I would not usually have been looking at starting a friendship or even a connection with somebody doing career development, coaching, executive like that, because it's not a need I've had. But what I have discovered is that you bring a unique approach and gifting to looking at entrepreneurs and the challenges that we face and thinking about them in terms that I don't always think about, because I'm head down being a creative and you're going, if the pieces don't work and the processes don't work, none of what you're building works.
Okay, so I find this so interesting, especially because we're recording it. Because we're friends and we've watched each other and we're like, love you. Let's have fun together. Let's do this. And also you did work on my website and over doubled my conversions to sales calls right after my new website was laid out. But so we've had business results together. But I want to hear what you think. Like, what do you think the gifting is, and what do you think that I do for entrepreneurs? Because a lot of people think what I do only applies to corporate. And I say, no, it applies to anybody that needs to work so they can eat and live indoors.
So I think the part that crosses over for me, and this is something that took me a little while to grasp, because I had she's helping people in job placement and figuring out their resumes and the technical pieces of the actual deliverables. And
Yeah.
because I'm a creative, I think of, and people oftentimes hire me to build the deliverables. But what I realized is that it's the pre-work and the brain work and the thought process work and the how the heck are you going to have an intelligent conversation with the person in front of you, not just the physical delivery that you're going to send in your email to put in their hands. And that's where I realized there's actually some parallels between what you do and what I do.
Dude, we have the same job.
We kind of do.
We have the same job with different customers.
Yeah. So the delivery items are a little different, but the process of getting there. And it's actually why I think you're a great person to have on the podcast and to talk about this, because you're bringing a different angle
Yeah.
to this. And you've got this idea of success on your terms that I'd love to hear you kind of articulate. And you and I have gone back and forth about this a little bit, but there is such a sense of, I'm going to build the business that I think will get me someplace. And 5 years in, and having had to I burned my business to the ground because 5 years in I built a business I don't like
Yeah.
and that I don't want to do for the next 10 years. Now I need to start over. And you've got this process or this idea. So what is success on your own terms
So
really mean?
success on it, it's something that sounds really catchy in a bio. People love it, which is cool. 'Cause that's part of what we have to do.
Part of it.
We have to create something that captures some attention so that you can have the real conversations. The idea behind success in our own terms is like, we've all grown up. You and I are both good, solid Gen Xers, and we've all grown up with this concept that used to get talked about a little bit more than it does now, of keeping up with the Joneses.
Mhm.
Meaning that there is this path that the world considers success, and that a lot of us are wired that we have to do things this certain way. And I think every generation has a version of this that might look a little different. So for my parents, it was, you're going to be in your profession and you're going to work at the same place for 30 years and get a gold watch and a pension or whatever that is, right? And my parents were academics, like they worked at the community college level. Both of them were excellent teachers. I come by my teaching capability, honestly. Both at various points were the department heads, which was like the highest job that they could get, really, and still be able to teach. Very successful at what they did, but it was like, you're going to be there forever. And then you're going to get the pension. You're going to be done. That's how you did it. So you were captive. I remember my dad, the last few years of his career, telling us on the regular how many class days, because he knew how many days a week, there's this many weeks in a semester and this many days I'm going to teach class and all that. How many class days until he retired? Because the last few years were not awesome for him. So that is success, but on the terms of the person that decided how many years you got to work to get your pension. He couldn't pick up and move without substantial risk to our family's finances. In Gen X, we're all we're the latchkey generation. We had to put the lasagna in the oven on 350 at 5:30 so that it was ready when mom and dad came home, or what the hell. And please do your homework before, that was our job after school. And so for us, it wasn't necessarily, we watched this work somewhere 30 years model. We were told, go to college. It was actually more affordable to go to college. So we were in this, like, graduate high school, graduate with your degree, go into a career related to your degree, and maybe not stay somewhere 30 years, but you're going to stay somewhere a good long time. And loyalty was still part of the vocabulary at that time. I got over it really quick because I got laid off twice in the first 3 years of my career due to the tech wreck of the early 2000s. Millennials and Gen Z start to be different because the cost of college and the cost of housing and everything, like, it all feels different to them. But they also were raised in the social media age where the comparison-itis isn't just the people in their community, it's freaking everyone. And if you don't have anybody around you that chose entrepreneurship over working at the Fortune 500 company, you don't even know what that can look like. So for me, I want people to see possibility. And I want people to respect what other people have and what they've accomplished and what their gifts are, more than they respect pedigree, or at least as much. Like, pedigrees and qualifications are important. But a thing that I hear all the time about Gen Z, I've been saying this for a while, is like, people will be pissy about Gen Z who is in their first few years out of college. And this really started when they first started exiting college, 5 years ago or so. These people, they're so entitled. They want to do that. And then I look at them and I'm like, that kid has sold art. Like, they want to do more. They want challenging design, challenging work as a graphic designer or whatever. They need to earn their stripes. That person's been selling art on Tumblr since they were 12. and they got through college by doing freelance design work. They have as many years of experience as you. And so that's a different way. It's just different ways to think about it, and everyone is important. I think that there's something for every generation to learn. I like, Gen Z are our kids. I don't have any kids, but that's
Yeah.
our generation's kids are Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And so there's a lot to admire. Gen Z and Gen Alpha want work-life balance, and they want to spend time with families, and they want more purpose in their work. I'm sorry, is that bad? So anyway, there's a very long answer to your question, but
No, but I think it's so interesting, and it's interesting that you bring up the next generations really, because so our oldest is 22, our youngest is 17, and I'm seeing hints of that. Like if they're doing something they love, like they can hyper focus at a level that frankly, like
are you jealous of it?
I only do on my best work days.
Yeah,
Now, if they're not interested, like there is no getting them to fake it. Like
yeah. Oh, damn, they're authentic.
and the tension we're finding, because we also own a brick and mortar build business and they work for us, is that there are parts of business and work and life that just suck but still have
Yeah,
to be done.
yeah,
And so I'm seeing both sides of that equation in not just my kids, but the kids we hire at the store who are also all teens. And even the process of trying to find the right person with the right fit, who is a self starter and asks the right kind of questions and will sometimes do the sucky work and not give you a hard time about it. And so, but knowing at the end of the day, they want something more out of their work experience.
It's really interesting about this because I don't think any of the generations we've discussed ever didn't want purpose out of work, but we weren't trained to prioritize it. I don't think any of them. And also, like, every generation likes to shit on the next generation. Sorry if this is not PG, but you can bleep that out if we don't do the 7 deadly words you can't say on television here. But basically, everybody criticizes. Don't really it's funny because I don't really remember what Gen X was criticized about, but I do remember when people our age and our parents' age started complaining about the millennials. And of course, Gen Z is like everyone's least favorite. But nobody, like, we all had to learn that you have to do crappy stuff. Like, someone has to pay the bills, someone has to mow the lawn, someone has to do the laundry. And if you're not straight up wealthy with parents or the ability to spend money to get all of that done, then you have to go through learning that as much as anybody else. So it's not new. It's not like Gen Z invented not wanting to do mundane crap. They
Right.
did
They're
not
just a
invent
lot
that.
more vocal about it.
I will say though that the point of like how to screen for hiring is important because no matter what age you are, there are some people that are going to get it for what your organization is and some people that are not going to get it. And on the flip side, if you are managing your own career, looking for jobs or looking for clients because you're an entrepreneur, there are clients or employers that are going to get it and get you. And there's ones that are not going to get it. To me, the big deal that most people do not do is they do not sit down and articulate clearly what are the behaviors associated with what I want and what I don't want. I have a whole presentation that I've given a couple times on values alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And I trained a bunch of career coaches on this back in January. I was asked by a career coaching association to give this presentation and training because a lot of people will say, well, you need to identify your brand values or your personal values in this. But what not nobody, because clearly I did, but not enough people talk about how you take that and carry it forward.
Mm.
It's just like, oh, well, I have this piece of paper that says my core values are wisdom, courage, curiosity, humor, generosity, and authenticity. And they stop there.
Mm-hmm.
They don't talk about what that means and what that doesn't mean. Organizations do it, individuals do it. So if you sit down and think, what are the behaviors associated with this thing that I say I value? What are the behaviors that are definitely not this thing I value? And then craft questions around that and embed it into your performance process. That is what has to happen. in order for this to take hold as an employer. As an individual, especially when the job market is weird, it's harder because you have to identify when you're going to leave a company.
Hmm.
You have to identify when you would say, I'm walking out with no notice. It's rare, but for me, like, if someone tried to bribe or steal or break the law, like, I'm out. I'm not gonna be part of that. I could end up prosecuted. We're gone. When are you gonna start looking? And if you're in the market, especially involuntarily, what are you withdrawing from because it is not values aligned? People don't do that work.
I don't know that I've ever thought of it that way. I've thought of it in terms of my personal pursuit or our family's goals, what we, and not just like 3 years from now goals, but like just what makes us us and why, what do we
Yeah.
want to replicate in our kids and our extended families and the relationships we have. But I've never thought of it in terms of some of those pieces. And the interesting thing is that when those moments hit, when I got to the point where I had been carrying my letter for weeks to every meeting tucked at the bottom of my
You mean a
stack.
resignation letter or a
Yes.
fire the
My
client letter?
a
Yeah.
resignation letter, and it was a question of today be the day. I look at it and I go, well, how did I get to that standpoint? Well, I had drawn the line and I knew, with your kid, you're like, don't go further than this. I had done that, but I hadn't been intentional or even it hadn't been conscious. It had been like,
Yeah.
when we
And
get to
so
that
you
point, we're done.
basically did it, which is cool, but you did
Right.
it in a reactive way.
Yes. Totally reactive.
And I'll tell you, I'd rather have someone do it in a reactive way than not do it at all. Because a lot of people will either take the job they know they shouldn't take because for whatever reason they feel like they can't. Or more, what it more looks like is, well, I got this offer and my spidey sense is going off hardcore, but I can't even say why, so I'm going to take the offer. That kind of thing. Let me ask you this question. Think of a brand. I don't care what it is. Ideally, if you can think of like a national one that everybody listening to would understand. But what is a brand that you feel like is really clear about its values?
I think Chick-fil-A is clear about its values.
Yep.
At least they have decided what they are going to be and are going to follow them whether or not people like that.
Yes.
So there is
But let me
values.
let me stop you there.
Yeah.
So you got Chick-fil-A. What is a brand where you feel like they're just trying to make the money?
Avis Car Rentals.
Okay. What's the difference?
Brand promise is actually delivered on one versus the other, just from this is our core offer. We actually provide the service as well. And that really comes down to the personal, like face-to-face experience with them,
Mhm.
the marketing experience, and the fact that even in their marketing, there is some level of intrinsic value that they are applying to you that you feel, even though it's marketing, but I read
Even
an
if it's
Avis.
just humor with the freaking cow.
Yes, I read an Avis email and I go, these are like my last resort. I
Yeah.
read the cow email or I get a push notification if I've got the app running and I'm like, and it always makes you smile because it's ridiculous. So it really comes down to the culture they've built and how they're making customers feel, whether you're planning to spend money in the next
So
month
the
with
way
them or
that
not.
they do that is the process I described, which and I actually did that. You want me to walk through how I did it for a small business?
Yeah, do it.
Get a little free consulting. So I was working with a CEO, he's a wealth manager, and had a staff of like 5. But also I knew he had a long-term plan to grow the company bigger, which by acquisition, he's now at like 20, 25 people, a few years later. So basically, he had a set of core values that they'd kinda ish operated under. They were largely his values, which is common in, one owner, a few employees, or solopreneur driven. And so what I did is I worked with him on what are the behaviors that are and are not that value. And then I did the same thing with every single member of his team because there was only 5. And I looked for alignment. So I wanted to make sure, are we all saying the same thing
Mm.
when we mean family first, for example? So we did all that and synthesized it and looked for gaps. and then basically defined. It was like a deck that's like, here's what these 5 or 6 values are, and here's what they mean, and here's what's definitely not. And then it got embedded into the performance review process too. So
Nice.
instead of just getting evaluated on, did you meet your goals? Were you on time every day? Like, were you nice to customers? Whatever. There was also a layer of, do you embody what these values that we
Mm,
decided are? I'm not sure. It's been a few years, so I'm not sure if that's still there. And I didn't do every detail of that. So I don't know exactly how they ended up evaluating it, but I know that they changed their whole performance review process to align with that. So yeah,
mm,
because it's really crappy when you just say we have integrity and you don't say what that means. And everybody's not on board with it. And it's really horrible when you say that and you evaluate people on it, but you've never defined it,
hmm.
which I've had happen at more than one company.
Well, and
So yeah, that's what you
it's
do.
it's nearly impossible to hold people to a standard that is nebulous.
Right.
Like integrity, yeah, like how does that look? What does that flesh out like? What
Yeah.
my youngest has a statement. She's like, "Why are we celebrating the bare minimum?
Right.
Like why like what you just explained to me is the bare minimum expectation. Why is that a celebration? That is not a celebration. That is what should be the equivalent of showing up.
Yeah.
I need it to be something more than."
Well, and I think there's also degrees. Like too often we want to make this stuff binary. And you either are or you aren't. Well, you know what? Maybe somebody wasn't the bare minimum. And instead of firing them, you decided to work with them because you saw potential. And then they got to bare minimum. In that case, that's actually something to celebrate.
It very much so.
So I will go. Is it Juju?
It's juju, yeah.
Yeah. So Juju, I don't entirely agree with you, but I don't not agree with you.
And
So
there's a little more context to
yeah,
that too,
there definitely is.
but yeah. So the interesting part of this, and I'd love to get your take on that kind of approach, how you take that approach as you think about you and I have talked several times recently about AI and what it's doing to people and
Mm.
the way we talk about our businesses. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on specifically what it's so easy to put content in out right now, but it's not necessarily content that is in alignment with who we are, who our brand is, and what our public face version of what we put out should actually be. So I'm curious, how do we think about, for those people who are doing job search, we're thinking about our teams, how do we bring alignment to like, I need to show up and talk about my business in public and market it in a way that's in alignment with all those things. So
So
how
the
do I
number one thing, the most important thing is stop being afraid of repelling people. Repelling people is actually the job of a brand.
say that again for those in the back?
Stop for all of you in the back. Stop being afraid of repelling people. Repelling people is part of the job of a brand.
So conversely, how do we build as entrepreneurs, small business leaders, how do we build a networking practice that attracts the right people and repels the wrong people?
Um, Number one. So first off, you have to one of I'm gonna rabbit trail for a minute. So I went to a conference last week. It was in Kansas City. It's called C3KC. The whole idea is to get civic, community, and corporate people together to talk about how we can think differently about issues that are facing the Kansas City metro area. And I moderated a panel on AI at work. That's not the important part. The important part is that I went and sat down at my table at lunch. They gave me a little, card that's like, oh no, on my name tag, table 13. I go over to table 13. I'm in the early shift at lunch and there's 2 people sitting at the table. And they're from this organization called American Public Square. It's a nonprofit that is designed to help take people and make them disagree better about important issues. So instead of trying to convince people of stuff,
Mhm.
it's trying to understand stuff. And they do it largely about political things. So the whole idea of letting go of I have to convince people and walking in with I need to try to understand people to
Mm.
any venue where you're networking is number one. It's curiosity, basically, fundamentally. But that was kind of really interesting because that's the whole premise of the organization. And they did a workshop on it that was wonderful. But also, I just sat down next to these people that I didn't know anything about. And
Mhm.
I just talked to them. And I got my whatever rubber chicken and green beans from the buffet, and they're gathering their stuff together because they're presenting after lunch, and we're just talking. I could have easily just taken my phone out and scrolled while these people were sitting there. And I'm gonna have coffee with one of them, and then, whenever we can get it arranged, because I just decided I'm here to kinda just be curious about people. So the first thing is any conversation that you're going into, walk in with a spirit of curiosity instead of an agenda. That does not mean that you can't have objectives that you want to meet for a meeting because nobody wants a purposeless meeting, even if it's just catch up, get to know you, you know, talk about the latest episode of The Pit, whatever that is. That's still an agenda, by the way. Thursday is the finale.
Thursday's finale.
Can't but yeah. But then there's also types of networking. And this is a model I've been working on for a little while. But the thing that I see that people have trouble with is they don't have enough imagination about networking. So there's the curiosity bias to begin with. But there's also this thing that our friend Angie Callan, who, if you have not had on the show, you need to have on the show because she's great.
She's on the list.
She's on the list.
On the
Good.
desired list. Yes.
You can make that happen.
Yeah, I know.
She says, stop going. You can't be going on the first date with a ring in your pocket. And people do this all the time. So, in the context of a job seeker, which is
LinkedIn.
what?
LinkedIn DMs.
I'm not even talking about that.
Oh, okay.
Like, yes, that's gross, but
Yeah.
fine, delete. Those are auto-generated bot BS. I'm talking about the people who think I'm in a job search. I'm told I need to network to find a job. That means I need to go find people that hire people like me. And then I need to have a conversation with them that leads them to telling me that they're going to refer me to a job. They see this extremely linear, A to B. That's how that's going to happen. And it comes across as transactional. Number one, because it freaking is. Number two, because they don't approach with curiosity, because you can have a conversation like that sometimes with curiosity. But they basically just go try to get the person to say that they'll marry them on the first date. And that doesn't work very often. It works occasionally. It doesn't work very often. So I've been thinking about a model for networking to help people connect more often with less agenda, but with purpose, if that makes sense. And so there's 4 things. I don't know if you listen to this, by the time Ryan releases this, I may have renamed them. Pay attention to the gist, not the names. The first one is play. This is the most underrated. And that is just talk to people. Just try to discover things about people that have nothing to do with you. These people that sat down next to me, the only thing we had in common is that the only thing we knew we had in common at the time I sat next to those 2 people from that organization is that we were both at the same conference. That's it.
Oh.
That's all we knew. I didn't even know if they lived in the area because for all I know, they could have shipped somebody in. Okay. Literally the only thing that I know. And then we chat, and I'm like, oh, well, they're interested in this stuff that's related to civics education and better discourse. That sounds interesting. By the end of it, I'm actually interested in joining this group as a member and going to events. But we didn't know that when I sat down. That has nothing to do with what I do in my business. So it's not like I was going, oh, well, immediately, oh, this could be a client. I just wanted to know what the hell they were doing.
Right.
And why they were doing it. And so that's play. That can be also, you just sit down, you decide to go to happy hour at a restaurant, you sit down and you just talk to somebody. And they don't have anything to do, and you don't even necessarily talk to them ever again. But just Be curious. What do you do? Oh, well, I'm a sixth grade teacher. Well, I don't know nothing about sixth grade teachers because I'm not a teacher. I don't have any kids. I don't care. It would be easy to shut that down. What's going on with sixth graders these days? What are you doing when you're not dealing with the sixth graders? What did you order and why did you order it? Just talking. The
Be
second,
human.
huh?
Be human.
Be a freaking human. And I'm introverted is a terrible excuse for not doing that. It might impact the frequency.
Hmm.
It might impact how many details of your life that you share. But introverts are notorious for being very good one on one. So play conversations that are brief and one on one, where you don't feel like you have to tell your whole life story, but maybe you say why you come to this restaurant every Friday night. That is in keeping with being an introvert. It's not in keeping with being a misanthrope, but that's a whole different problem. So the second one is discover. Discover is a little bit beyond play. It has a little bit extra purpose behind it for whatever your current, whatever like your life goals are. So this is where I think people, if they're looking for a job or they're trying to find clients for their business, this is where you need to put a little imagination in to some of the things you might already be doing. Maybe you're not trying, maybe you're going on the first date and you're not trying to put a ring on it to that person, but you're trying to get them to introduce you to their best friend that looks really cute. Or you're trying to figure out where you should be hanging out, that kind of stuff. So for discovery, a really practical example is I work with a lot of people that work in product management and tech on job searches. I was in product management for many years. And so what ends up happening when people are product managers and they're networking for their job search and they have a ring in their pocket on the first date, they do things like post in a product management group on Facebook, "Hey, I want to apply to the senior PM role at Stripe. Can someone refer me?" And they don't know anybody. I'm like, and half the time they do it anonymously. Like, I don't even know who I'm on the date with. And you want me to use my social capital to recommend you? And I don't even know who you are. Like, don't do that. But if you are a product manager and you're interested in the payments industry and you have SaaS experience, you're interested in SaaS, then you go and look for people that have done that thing. Maybe they're at Stripe, maybe they're not. Maybe you know that you want to apply at Stripe. You have that in your back pocket. But you just find somebody that's a VP, they're a VP of software engineering or customer success at Visa that happens to know your old boss. Okay, well, I'm going to go talk to them. What's it like working in the payments industry? I worked in it 5 years ago. Things have changed a lot. I want to get back into it. What is it? What's going on? How are you working with product managers, Miss VP of engineering? That's discovery. And so you're learning about what's possible. You're learning about what's going on in the industry and you're sharing along the way. I worked in ed tech for a few years. I'm over ed tech. I want to get back into payments. What's going on? You're sharing what you're about, you're sharing what's important to you, but you're not getting the ring out of your pocket. At some point, you figure out your own messaging and your own value prop, and it starts to become more purposeful. And that's when you're looking for opportunities and advocates. And so at that point, you're shifting it. So maybe you go back a few months later to that VP of engineering that you talked with at Visa and say, okay, here's the deal. I'm interested in what's going on at Visa. I'm super interested in what's going on at Stripe because I know Stripe has this problem and I solved it. Do you know anybody at Stripe that you can introduce me to? Or do you know of another company that's kind of like Stripe and maybe they're doing similar things that I'm not aware of? Or there is something at Visa where you're doing that thing and you could, okay, now you're uncovering the opportunities that could be in front of you. And that could be a client too. So it works for anything that you're going after. And then the fourth thing is nurture. And nurture is the thing that everybody needs to start doing immediately and not stop till they die. And that is just connecting with people. And it could be for any of those three reasons, but a lot of it should be play. But you're just trying to connect with people sometimes. And for some people, that's going to look like, I go to 2 conferences a year. I'm an extrovert. I'm going to come home with 20 business cards and I'm going to set up lunches and coffees with all of those people. For other people, It's brainstorming their 10 tightest, most favorite people that they want to be in contact with and making sure that they connect with each of them once a month. So they rotate through for the year. It doesn't really matter, but you need to be doing something. Anyhow, that's the model.
So the last one, there's pieces of that I see, and I'm like, oh yeah, that aligns with me. But the last one for me, as someone who has attention focus issues, I have found that if I don't document the people that I want to be connecting with over and over and over again, like
They're invisible,
they are invisible, and it's not because I don't care.
right?
And it's not because I don't have the right intention. It's that the thing in front of me burns so much brain power that having to remember the list doesn't happen.
You want me to tell you how to do it, how to get started on this in, say, 30 minutes?
Go
I
for
may
it.
even have a worksheet for this. I haven't talked about this in a long time. I called it the orbit model because I didn't know what else to call it.
Ooh. Oh,
So
I
the
like
idea is that in the universe of people that you know, there are some people, you're the sun. There are some people that are like Mercury, Venus, Earth, very close to you that you talk frequently. There are other people that are all the way out until eventually Pluto, which everybody says isn't a planet anymore. I disagree. I'm a kid of the 80s. I think it's a planet. It's not just the weird dog from Disney that wears clothes. No,
Yeah.
that's Goofy.
That's goofy.
Sorry, I got my dog. I'm not a Disney person. I shouldn't have tried to do that. But the idea is that you so you could brainstorm out, like, let's say 50 people, go through your
Yeah.
contacts, go through your LinkedIn, and then think about how close do you want these people to be? And I would deliberately challenge yourself to think of a few people that you respect and like, but you don't feel like you need to talk to all the time. And then just kind of drop them like your kids, your wife, Mercury, your best friend
Mm-hmm.
whose son married your daughter, Mercury. And then there's other people that are a little farther out. And then maybe somebody that you're like, I would like to catch up with them at the conference twice a year. That might be like Jupiter. And then the person that you only interact with in the comments on Facebook, but you respect them, is out at like Uranus, Neptune, Pluto area. Then map out for you, what does it mean to be in contact with them? The people at like Mercury and Venus, you don't have to think about usually. It's the ones that are farther out that you have to think about, and you can calendar them. So you can say, I have these 10 people that I want to make sure that I connect with twice a year, and I'm going to mark it on the calendar. And I know from your Clifton strings that you're an execution focused person. So if you put it on the calendar, then you'll do it, or in your CRM tagged right or whatever, you'll figure out how to do it. So that's how you do it, is you just map that out and then drop it in your calendar and go forth. Here's the wildest part of this. I have made tens of thousands of dollars over the years from the people that were out in the I only interact with you online, including from people that I'm like connected with. But you know how you like forgot that you connected with a person from college? Like, I am connected to Susie on LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever. And then they watch you for years.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly they need what you have. And you didn't even know that they were in the lane. Tens of thousands of dollars I've made from people like that because I was kind in the comments and because I wasn't afraid to repel people and because I wasn't afraid to talk about what I valued.
So I've got a friend who has taken this idea and scaled it.
Which idea?
The idea of really looking at your networking circles and thinking with strategy and intentionality about the relationships you're building, and a willingness to build relationships that you aren't sure will ever benefit you in any way from a business standpoint.
Yes, to that. Yes.
And so he's been in the nonprofit space. He's been in the political campaign space. He's been in the construction space, like running giant multi-million-dollar building kind of development kind of stuff. But he and I have met several times in the last year because I noticed that he keeps showing up. And I'm like, tell me about what you're doing. And he said, I learned a long time ago that being in the room takes you a long ways. That showing up with intention puts you in places where you make connections that may eventually mean something, and being willing to help someone else meet their goals in the process is not just being a great person, but it also ends up building you business connections.
Yes, and do you get the Val Pack in California?
Yes.
You know what that is?
Yep.
Okay. So a long, long time ago, I was a partner in a business that was like a local business. And the Val Pack people called on us because they're like, new business, fresh meat, right? But what they told us is that the absolute dead minimum contract that you could get from them, it was either 6 or 12 months. And the reason is that it takes a minimum of 4 months for anybody to recognize your brand in the Val Pack. Showing up in the room is the same way. Now, some people are like a little more dynamic or timely and like they're working on the hot thing or whatever. And so it might not take them 4 months, but you can't go to the monthly AI user group and not get a job out of that and decide that group isn't useful. You have to show up multiple times. And in a lot of cases, especially for people that are maybe more introverted, they don't want to try to orient themselves to a billion new people.
Mhm.
Going to one or two groups consistently for a year might mean more than going to a whole bunch of different ones once or twice over the year. So, yeah, the Valpak method of trying to get exposure. And that's also how it works in your DMs. Follow up. Let's talk about follow up. Everybody always has how many times should I follow up before I am annoying? The answer is my take on follow up, especially for job seekers, is decide what your follow up cadence is going to be. And when I train my job seekers, the same damn thing can apply to business owners trying to do sales, whether they're selling for like their employer or whether they're selling for themselves, like businesses you and I own. But decide up front what your cadence is going to be. For an A grade primo, I definitely want this job. It's my dream company, top 5 company.
Mhm.
You might have a different cadence than for something that's kind of in the B category. And if it's a C, stop fooling around with that. Don't apply to C jobs. Don't try to chase C-level clients unless you're literally going to lose your house and not be able to eat. But maybe I'll follow up 4 times with the A grade, but only 2 times
Mm.
with the B grade. Decide what it is and don't let it be an option. I did this today, and I'm not perfect at this. Like sometimes I'll be like, okay, I said midweek and I'm not feeling it Tuesday. So I'm going to move that task to Wednesday. But when you hit Thursday, it's late in the week. So you got to do it Wednesday if you told the people you're going to follow up on Wednesday. Don't let it be an option. Just like you don't let paying the light bill or brushing your teeth be an option. And I followed up for probably one more time than I normally would with a client today. But I feel like she needs me. And I feel like my P&L would like to have another client. And I feel like I can help her.
Mhm.
And that last follow-up, $2,400.
But the interesting thing there is you just said something, and you said it in passing, but I think it's a powerful thing, is you had your process, you knew your process, your rhythm.
Yeah.
You also recognized, I know enough in relationally about this person that I think I'm the right fit. I think my business could actually help them. So I'm going to go outside of my normal
Yes.
and make the exception. I didn't rewrite my entire
No.
system process because of one person, but I need to connect with that. You're saying that, and I'm going, there's someone in both of our circles who I've gone back and forth with 4 or 5 times who told me, I'll get back to you in April. It's now mid-April and I have not heard from them. I need to probably touch back in, because they were one of those who
Mm-hmm.
admitted, I desperately need help on this. And so I've I've passed my normal follow-up window.
Yeah.
We're
It's
past.
interesting because it might have been it's Vince Pugliese.
Okay.
His follow-up is until you tell me to stop following up or until you say yes. The cadence might be different,
Mhm.
but I met him in 2022 2 and said, like, I want to get to know you and do coffee or whatever. I just was interested in what he was doing. And then I was like buried with a bunch of personal stuff plus trying to run a business. He checked in on me about once a month for a year. And finally, one day he caught me in a good moment. And I was like, sure, I can talk to you today. That's not for everybody, but it worked for him.
Mhm.
But the real gold in this is for people, especially if they're not used to the pursuit. So people that haven't
Mm.
historically worked in sales, which is most of my clients and most nonprofits that you have worked with a lot in your business. The thing is making the decisions. The problem is that people are having to remake the decisions. This is why Zuckerberg wore hoodies for years. It's why Steve Jobs wore that freaking New Balance tennis shoes, those weird jeans that didn't fit right, and the mock black turtleneck forever. It was less decisions to make. So if you make a decision, this is what it means to be an A opportunity. This is my follow up cadence for an A opportunity. This is what it means to be B. This is what it means to follow up on B. And this is what it means to be a C that I'm not going to pursue. If the decisions are made, then you're good. And also, if you have the ability, not everybody has this ability um, or inclination. If you have the ability to recognize that processes and rubrics and all that kind of stuff is for the 95%, not for 100%, you can manage the exceptions. What is it about this person that I'll tell you when I don't want to identify her, but I'll tell you when we're off the air, like what it was that made me so interested that I followed up that last extra time with this client that I landed today. But there was something where I was like, I'm not going to run across this ever again. This is a cool opportunity. I want to do that. And so it was worth the exception.
You just put a percentage on something that I don't hear people putting a percentage on. And that's that if your system meets the 90 to 95%, you're in a pretty good place. And I think that's a great rule that I see so few businesses actually doing because, and this is a problem that I'm having with the last piece of the framework that's going in my book is every time I sit, I'm like, but what about the exception? And I meet with clients who are, what about the exception? Like we have to have this web build needs to meet every opportunity or it doesn't work for us. And I'm like, if it's 1 out of 100, manage it manually.
So another person that would be a really good guest for your podcast, weirdly, might not sound like it, but I think is good, is Dr. Greg Chasson. He wrote a book called Flawed, how the subtitle I always mess up, but it's about perfectionism at work and why it's not a great thing, like why management needs to focus on that. And so he wrote it like kind of from the corporate perspective a little bit more. But and the dude is a PhD psychologist, University of Chicago, like he is no joke. And he introduced a model called the emphasis framework, which is A emphasis, B emphasis, C emphasis. C emphasis you don't do. A emphasis deserves your full effort at getting quality. So for you, strategy and messaging deserves that. If you get the messaging to where it's an A, which fun fact is like a 90 to 92% on grade cards, not 100%. But if you get the A on messaging, but your social media content is a B, but you do it consistently with A messaging, it's better than never doing any of it because you were trying to get 100%. So you have to figure out which is worth, the effort. And that meant a lot to me because I never had developed a business plan until 2026. I'd been doing a
Hmm.
lot of stuff in the moment. And it was because I built it up to this thing that needed to be perfect and I needed to like practically go get my MBA to do it. And really what I needed is to state a whole bunch of attentions, a B level that I could then compare against. It was like a compass, not a GPS.
Mm.
Or as our pal Terry says, he draws the map. He doesn't give you all the directions. So saying, well, I would like to have this much revenue this year. Cool. I think I can get there if I do this kind of plan. Okay. Well, a lot of my Q1 didn't happen
Mm-hmm.
because I realized something else was more important. That doesn't mean my plan was bad,
Right.
but I do need to go, yes, I purposely made a decision to prioritize differently. So it's a work in progress. But yeah, the only reason I got it done is because of Dr. Chassen's framework.
I love that actually, because that is that helps you move beyond the need to deliver everything in the moment, the need to be so self-critical about everything. When our friend copywriter Haley and I had a conversation recently on the podcast, we talked about the fact that the best copy is a iteration that you will grow on into the future, that you
Yeah.
don't have to nail every aspect. Put something out there, test it, see what works,
Guys,
add to
it's
it.
electrons. The copy on your website is electrons, and you can turn those electrons a different color.
It is. We are past the days of print media where if you didn't get it right, day number
Yes.
one, you were in trouble. And
Yes.
I think that's such a great application to this conversation, to those ideas of really helping us as business owners move past the need to feel like everything has to be right, or
Yeah.
I've failed and I
And
can't
there's
do it.
also a difference. There's a difference between I don't know what I'm trying to do, and I don't know exactly how I want to say it. Those are two different problems.
Totally different problem.
You got to solve the right one. And if you don't know what you're trying to do, even if it's only for a year, even if you have dreams to do something completely different in a few years, you got to know what you're doing right now, or you can't develop the 90 to 2% messaging that goes into the 82% social media. So figure your stuff out. But also, that doesn't have to be perfect. That can iterate. The most surprising thing that happened to me this year, even though I've been building towards it for a long time, is I got nominated for an award that has several categories. And last year I was a finalist in the best career coach category. That was not a super surprise for me because number one, I kind of campaigned for it because there was a voting component to it. Number two, I've done career coaching and thought of myself that way for a long time. But I've also, like, under the covers, done career development and executive coaching or
Mhm.
leadership development, and executive coaching. I got nominated for that category this year. And I was like, what? Wait, what? What did I get? Okay, that's cool. And it's because, like, I've known I wanted to do more of that. I call it the other 90% of your career
Mm.
when you're not trying to transition or go get the job or whatever. I've been wanting to do more work with that because I like long term relationships with people and it lends itself to that. But I didn't actually think I could get nominated for an award for that. But I had clients nominate me, more than one. Exciting.
Very cool.
Is my messaging all updated to reflect that as an emphasis? No. It's close enough. I want work to feel good, not like a long, slow march to oblivion. Done. Okay, cool. That's good. And then I can talk to you more. Do I need and want to refresh that stuff? Yes. Is it the thing that I have to stop everything that I'm doing right now to go get perfect? No.
Yeah. I had to remind myself of that this week because I have made a conscious effort, and I started to allude to this in our mastermind call this week, but I made a conscious effort to chase some different things this year in terms of business and the type of clients and the type of work that I wanted to spend the majority of my time doing. I'm not pretending the others don't exist. I'm not shutting it all off. I'm just focusing on some things, which means I've got to nail how I articulate some of those things in public. And so I've been working on those. And I had this moment where I realized I can sit and spend the time making it look pretty on my website, or I can make sure I can sit across the table from someone and have a conversation where I sound like I actually know what I'm talking about. And right now, the conversations in the networking and in the face to face are what doors are opening over and over and over again. So why would I chase potential invisible leads in this moment when I have real leads who are going to meet me at an event next week that I need to have my act together for?
Yeah. So there's an interesting aspect. that I want to poke at. You know how sometimes your clients teach you like a mic drop thing about your business?
Yes.
So, my client slash friend, she used to be my work wife at a job like almost 15 years ago. Her name's Shelby. She came on the podcast and gave me really, I don't know if it was on the podcast or after, but she gave me really great way to think about stuff. And it applies to anybody that's trying to spit out stuff verbally, whether it's a business owner at a networking event or on a, like a stage, or whether it's somebody in a job interview or like any of these types of things where you got to kind of convey what you're about succinctly. Stop trying to memorize the message and start focusing on internalizing the message. Because then you're not saying the rote version of the perfect tagline. You're saying something that is like that, and you're getting your mouth used to spitting the words out. And oftentimes it's how you figure out that the slick version is not right. Because you're like, if I can't say it, it's not real. If I can't say it, then nobody will understand it. I need to adjust this a little bit. So the only way to internalize is to literally say it. You cannot write your way to being able to speak about yourself. You can only speak your way to being able to speak about yourself.
Yep. Yep. I sat at a networking event 3 weeks ago and I talked around the table about, they asked questions, what do I do? What does it look like? Kind of things. And I could tell by the person's eyes 3 phrases in whether they were with me and understood that angle. And I gave it to one person and realized they didn't get it. And the problem was not that they didn't need it. The problem was that I had put an extra something in there that made it unintelligible. I fixed it the next time, and the guy next to me who had not gotten it the first time was like, okay, yeah. And I'm like, okay, the problem is me. The problem is not
The me
the
problem.
me problem. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Diana, this has been actually a great conversation, and we have gone very different places than I think either of us wrote in our
We
notes of
kind of
where we
covered
might
all
go.
of it that we talked about, though.
We
We
did,
did a bunch of other stuff too.
which
Never
is
bad.
fantastic. These are actually the kind of conversations I love
By the
having.
way, for anybody wondering, Ryan and I could easily have had this exact conversation not for the podcast.
Yes. Oh, very much
That's
so.
how Ryan and I talk to each other.
Yes.
We're weirdos, maybe?
Sure.
A little. We like this stuff.
But I so appreciate you coming on. For those people who would love to get into your circle in your world, how can they find you? What's the next step for them?
Okay, there's 2 things you should do. I'm breaking the 1 CTA rule. I don't care. Number 1 is I have a podcast where I talk about a lot of this stuff. So even if you're an entrepreneur, you can benefit from this. It is called Work Should Feel Good. If you go to workshouldfeelgood.com, that's going to take you to the podcast page of my website. Go listen to stuff. Ryan has been a guest. He was an amazing interview. But I've talked to regular people just trying to do the thing, and authors and all kinds of people. The second thing is you can just go to dianaault.com and smash the big green Let's Connect button and join my email list. So because I haven't fixed all my messaging, some of the stuff is going to sound super job search heavy. And you might be like, do I want this email? But Ryan gets the email every Friday.
Yes, I do.
So there's things that are about basically leading better, treating yourself better at work, and also some tactical stuff about, sometimes it's about a job search. There's nothing I say about a job search that can't help you if you're a business owner, because it's always about messaging and strategy. So,
And as a receiver of that email, if you read it as a business owner and read it in the context of, this is stuff the person looking for a job in my organization needs to know. What do I need to apply to the hiring process to be the kind of place someone wants to work at? Is a great filter.
Well, that's a mic drop right there.
So, Diana, thank you so much. I appreciate it. For those of you who are listening, thanks for being part of this conversation. Feel free to like and review the podcast on Apple iTunes, would be amazing. And until next time, blessings.